Our relationships change the course of our lives, but can they change history? I'm the Affair Archivist, and this month's affair to remember is that between Jennifer Jones and David O. Selznick. Robert Walker was stuck at the gate at 20th Century Fox. Though he was a star and a major player at MGM, he was not granted access to the 20th Century lot. Not even the fact that he was there to see his wife, Jennifer Jones, on the set of her film, The Song of Bernadette, could persuade the gatekeepers to admit him. As he shrunk away from the lot, defeated, he noticed a fancy car behind him. It contained industry heavyweight David O. Selznick, and he had his eye on Bob and his wife. Bob Walker and Jennifer Jones were two promising young actors in the early 1940s with a young family. Though Bob Walker loved his wife, she was under contract with Selznick, and the movie mogul had taken a keen interest in more than just her film career. In a short time, Bob would find that his wife's ambition, paired with the obsession and power of Selznick, meant his marriage, and even his own life, didn't stand a fighting chance. Robert Walker was born in 1918 to a conservative and cold Mormon family in Salt Lake City, Utah. He lacked affection from his parents, particularly his mother, and often went to great lengths to get attention. As a child, he struggled to make friends and frequently found himself in hot water at school. As he got older, he became increasingly rebellious and was sent to military school. It was there that he discovered his love of the stage, and his well-off aunt gave him the opportunity to move to New York to study acting at the American Academy of the Dramatic Arts. It was there that he met Phyllis Isley, the future Jennifer Jones, and fell in love. Jennifer Jones was born into a show business family in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1919. She began acting at the age of 6 and spent her summers acting in touring productions around the country with her parents. From a young age, Jennifer's talent was evident. In one scene, she drank poison and died, and her performance was so convincing that the audience feared she was actually dead. After high school, Jennifer enrolled in Northwestern University, but soon became bored of the general education classes and wanted to focus solely on acting. Bob and Jennifer met in 1937 and were instantly attracted to each other. Bob contrived reasons to be near her and often asked her to do scenes with him. He would skip meals just to buy her flowers or take her out to a fancy dinner. When Jennifer left New York City for the summer to work summer stock with her parents, Bob fell into a depression and began working on a banana boat. At that point, he considered quitting acting so he could begin earning enough money to marry and support her. But when Jennifer returned, he changed his mind. He did tell her, however, that he was done with the academy. Without hesitation, Jennifer said she was also done. The two of them began going on auditions and getting stage work in low-level productions. For a time, Jennifer's parents did not like Bob, and they were not too happy with the dilapidated theater that the two of them worked in. They got Jennifer a job in radio in Tulsa to lure her home. However, she refused to go if Bob wasn't cast as her leading man and didn't receive the same salary as her. Bob later noted, "We were both in love with acting and were mutually attracted. I was only 19, but even then I knew there could never be anyone else. I didn't consider myself good enough for her. She made me want to be somebody. We were happy, or at least I thought we were." Bob and Jennifer married on January 2nd, 1939, and set off for Hollywood soon after in a car that Jennifer's father bought them. Jennifer got a part in a John Wayne film, while Bob began reading scripts and getting bit parts. Though they had some successes, Bob and Jennifer believed they'd get more substantial roles in New York. So they moved back east after barely a year in LA. Shortly after the return, Jennifer wasn't feeling so well. She was pregnant with their first child, Robert Walker Jr., born in the spring of 1940. After the birth of their son, Bob suggested that he and Jennifer give up acting in favor of more conventional, steady incomes. Jennifer refused. She knew that her purpose was acting, and she was not ready to pack it in. Soon after their return to New York, Bob began finding success in radio and was making a good living for his young family. Before their son was even a year old, Jennifer was pregnant again. This time, it was she that resigned herself to quitting acting. However, Bob urged her not to give up. He was making enough money to afford a nanny to watch the children so she could pursue acting after her pregnancy. Jennifer gave birth to their second son, Michael, in March of 1941, yet her career would take some time to get back on track. Jennifer finally had hope of resuming her acting career when she scored an audition for the lead role in an adaptation of the play Claudia, just a few months after her second son was born. However, the audition didn't go as planned, and convinced she had done an awful job, she ran out of the room sobbing. Luckily for Jennifer, one very important person didn't think she did so bad. In fact, he was charmed by the rawness of her meltdown. That man was David O. Selznick. In the early 1940s, Selznick was at the height of his powers as a producer. He had just come off 2 consecutive Best Picture wins, one for Gone with the Wind, the other for Rebecca, and was focused on topping his previous blockbuster successes. Selznick had a chip on his shoulder and an axe to grind with Hollywood, and his painstaking attention to detail and his obsession with being the most successful producer in town was rooted in an early setback his father suffered. Selznick was born in 1902. His father, Louis, was a jeweler turned movie producer. Selznick's father gave him an early start in the film industry. He was a script reader by the age of 14. By 18, he was running the production company's publicity department. Though Selznick was one of the leading producers in the early era of film, in 1923 his company collapsed due to his exorbitant spending, plus sabotage from his enemies in the industry, who prevented his films from getting distribution. The family lost everything, including their 22-room apartment on Park Avenue. This motivated David to avenge his father's disgrace and become a successful movie mogul. He produced his first film at 24 and made the move to California with his family to rebuild their father's empire. He became a reader at MGM in 1926 and soon after began dating the boss's daughter, Irene Mayer, daughter of Louis B. Mayer. They married in 1931. David left MGM to work at Paramount after a dispute with Irving Thalberg, then moved on to a successful stint at RKO, where he helped launch the careers of Katharine Hepburn and Laurence Olivier. He produced one of the biggest films of the 1930s, King Kong, but left the studio before he could receive proper credit. No doubt impressed by his son-in-law's major successes at RKO, Louis B. Mayer hired him again at MGM. However, Selznick soon grew restless, and within 2 years he began his own production company and bought the rights to a novel called Gone with the Wind. Selznick, summing up his approach to his work, once said, "My function is to be responsible for everything." His approach to producing earned him a reputation in Hollywood as difficult and overbearing. He also had a gambling addiction he inherited from his father, and carried on many affairs around Hollywood. One actress recalled being called into his office, where Selznick grabbed the front of her dress. She subsequently hit him over the head with a decanter. After her seemingly disastrous audition, Jennifer got a call from Selznick's secretary the following day. He wanted to meet with her. "I think he liked me," Jennifer concluded. He did like her, in more ways than one. At their fateful meeting, Selznick signed Jennifer to a lucrative contract with his studio. She would need to go out to LA to begin doing screen tests. Jennifer told Bob, who was making good money in radio, that she would split her time between coasts. As Jennifer departed west that summer, her film career, as well as potentially her affair with Selznick, commenced. Selznick was 39, Jennifer was 22. In the summer of 1941, Phyllis Isley became Jennifer Jones, at the urging of David O. Selznick, of course. Though it may have seemed like her career was on the fast track to success, it would take a while for Jennifer to get her breakthrough role. After she spent some time in LA, she returned to New York, waiting for further instructions from Selznick. However, that December, Pearl Harbor was attacked, and America entered World War II. Selznick was eager to get involved in the fight, and thought about putting his career on hiatus to support the war effort. Thus, he sold the rights to Claudia, began loaning out his stars, and downsized his company. He assured Jennifer that in time he would find the right role for her. "The whole world will fall in love with you, just as it has with Ingrid Bergman. I'll make sure of that." He did sign her for a 7-year contract, and got her a screen test for the film The Song of Bernadette, a story about a young French girl who had a vision of the Virgin Mary. The film was being produced by 20th Century Fox, and if she won the part, she would be loaned out by Selznick's company to star in the film. Though she had some prospects, Jennifer was still discouraged by the cancellation of Claudia, and what seemed like endless months of waiting for the perfect role. Bob reassured her, "He's not paying you all that money to keep you idle forever. This has been my big year, Now it's your turn. God knows you've waited long enough." Jennifer left New York for LA once again for the screen test, leaving Bob and the kids behind. They would join her at the end of the year when Bob's radio contract was up. Bob was deemed 4F, unfit for military service, and would be staying stateside for the duration of the war. Young actors were a hot commodity during the war years, and it wouldn't take long for his film career to take off once he made the move to LA. Selznick, however, was wary of Bob's move. He didn't want him to distract Jennifer from her career, or from Selznick. By December of 1942, Jennifer won the role in The Song of Bernadette, and Bob, under contract with MGM, completed his first picture for the studio, Baton. He impressed executives and audiences alike with his small yet significant role, leading to even more parts and a busier schedule. Selznick was happy to see Bob's career taking off. If he was too busy working, he would have less time to be around his wife. Though Jennifer had scored a coveted role, she was not permitted to do interviews, go to parties, or divulge the information that she was a married woman with 2 children. Selznick felt this would take away from the mystique around her character, who was a 14-year-old girl, later canonized as a saint. As his star rose, the press became interested in Bob, who was offered an interview for the Standard Examiner. The journalist learned that he and Jennifer were married. Jennifer was worried David would be angry this information was revealed, but Bob couldn't turn down the publicity. Bob drew the line when the writer requested photos of him and Jennifer at home. However, their cover was blown when the title of the article read, "All eyes are focused on Bob Walker and Jennifer Jones these days." Bob was excited about the article, Jennifer withdrawn and sullen. During the production of Bernadette, Jennifer was quiet and barely spoke to her husband at home. Their approaches to acting were different. Bob could leave his character behind after work. Jennifer still inhabited her characters after hours. Jennifer was shy and sweet, but also shrewd and ambitious. She knew what a huge opportunity lay in front of her, and she did not want anything to interfere with her performance. Her dreams were finally coming to fruition, and her ambition, as well as talent, were what would carry her to stardom. Around this time, she said, "For years I had heard people say, 'Keep your eye on the ball,' but it never meant anything to me. Then one day I happened to attend a championship golf tournament, and, all at once, like a bolt from the blue, it came to me. The secret of success in anything, from games to the real game of living, is just that, to keep your eye on the ball. While it may seem I swerved from the path to become a wife and mother, there was always the same ambition in my mind's eye." Though Bob wanted to take a vacation with Jennifer once their films in production wrapped, Selznick already had his next project in mind, a film called Since You Went Away, in which husband and wife would be cast as sweethearts torn apart by the war. The film also starred Shirley Temple, Joseph Cotton, and Claudette Colbert. The months of this stonewalling took a toll on the marriage. Bob became so frustrated with Jennifer that he had an outburst of anger which left her in tears. He felt awful about his behavior afterwards. He believed the strain of working apart would be alleviated when they began working on the film together. Bob couldn't have been more wrong. In hindsight, it was clear that Jennifer and Selznick affair was well underway when Since You Went Away was cast. However, Bob was still unaware of his wife's infidelity. There are many theories as to why Selznick cast Bob, his romantic rival, as the romantic interest of his lover. Some believe Jennifer suggested her husband for the role. Others believe his intentions were more sinister. He wanted Bob and Jennifer to know who was really pulling the puppet strings on their careers and their lives. Though we will never know for sure, what remains evident is that the production of Since You Went Away was torture for both Bob and Jennifer. Just before production began, Jennifer and Bob attended a party in Hollywood. They left early. Then Jennifer dropped the bomb that would wreck Bob's life. She wanted to separate. Bob was completely blindsided by Jennifer's revelation and believed she would eventually take him back. Some reported that Jennifer agonized for months as to whether or not she was doing the right thing in leaving Bob and breaking up the family. Ultimately, she realized she was incapable of living a double life. After saying goodbye to his sons, Bob moved out of their home and into a hotel with a bottle of whiskey in tow. He was never a drinker before, Yet alcohol would, going forward, consume much of his life. Bob once again felt unwanted, like he did with his mother. He didn't just cope through alcohol consumption. One afternoon, Bob went to a bar near MGM Studios. He saw his reflection in a cigarette machine, and he smashed his fist into it. He severed an artery and had to go to the hospital. When Jennifer told everyone at the studio of her separation from Bob, she received a long sable coat from Selznick. Though her marriage was broken, Selznick was still clinging to his and had no intentions of leaving Irene. After his violent outburst, Bob moved out of the hotel and got himself a small apartment. He focused on learning his lines for Since You Went Away and avoiding trouble to prevent further embarrassment for Jennifer. He didn't move much of his possessions out of their home, still believing he would eventually return after his wife took him back. Though he knew of Selznick's influence over his wife, he did not believe she was actually in love with the producer. He thought this was simply a passing affair that would eventually fizzle out. Things would return to the way they were. Bob was sure of it. To say the production of Since You Went Away was awkward would be a gross understatement. Jennifer did not speak unless cameras were rolling, and remained holed up in her dressing room in between takes. Despite the agony of having to act in love scenes with his estranged wife, Bob put up a brave front. When a reporter asked what it was like to work with Jennifer, Bob replied, "We're professionals, and we're acting." Bob's friend, actor Keenan Wynn, recalled, "The happy-go-lucky guy I'd worked with was transformed overnight into a morose and melancholy shadow of his former self. The film was emotionally disastrous for him. Did Selznick do what he did maliciously? I don't know. But it was heartless to bring Bob together with his estranged wife for intimate love scenes. It was almost as if Selznick was saying, 'She's my girl now, not yours.' Was this deliberate? Or was the man just too insensitive to realize the damage he was inflicting? Who knows? But I could see how badly this affected Bob. He was an especially sensitive guy." Many on the set, when asked later about the nature of the production, would speak to the heartache and turmoil that embroiled the two actors and the producer. Screenwriter DeWitt Bodine said, "Selznick could not stay away from the set whenever a scene between Jennifer Jones and Robert Walker was shot. He apparently loved to watch Miss Jones and Bob make love for the camera, even though they were separated. It must have satisfied a masochistic urge on his part to see the two of them kiss and embrace. I was a little surprised that Bob didn't walk out. It was too damn bad, really tragic, that Selznick had to break them up. However, I guess the stardom and the loot he offered her were irresistible. But my heart went out to that boy. He was so obviously in love with the woman, and she was so patently rejecting him. I think everyone connected with Since You Went Away was on his side, but no one dared say a word. Jennifer was unapproachable." As if things couldn't get worse for Bob, on his way home from the studio one evening, his motorcycle was struck by a car and he was flung onto concrete. Luckily for him, he sustained no major injuries, but was advised to take 3 weeks off to recover. Selznick stayed up late on Benzedrine to rewrite the script and schedule to accommodate Bob's extended absence. Interestingly, he did not replace him, though he had total authority to do so. As DeWitt said, he wanted Walker for the part and no one but Walker. Jennifer didn't fare much better than Bob, emotionally at least, on the set of the film. Director John Cromwell stated that she was as unhappy as I've ever seen a girl to be. Jennifer was not only uncomfortable in the part, she was also uncomfortable playing the very poignant love scenes with her about-to-be ex-husband, and on 2 occasions her emotional upsets caused her to flee the set in tears. Selznick had to come to her in her dressing room to calm her down before she could continue. At this stage, David was totally obsessed by Jennifer. Jennifer was half repelled, half attracted to him. They say money is sexy, but power is sexier, and David was all power. I guess it got to her. Jennifer was on edge all through the picture. She was worried about her role, and Selznick and her boys, and her guilt about Walker, and just about everything. But with all that was going on behind the camera, it's a wonder that she got through it all. Claudette and I had a time calming her down. During the most crucial love scene of the whole film, which was written by Selznick, Bob and Jennifer's characters profess their love for each other as Bob's doomed character leaves for the war. While filming this scene, Jennifer had a total breakdown and began hysterically crying. She ran away and locked herself in her dressing room. Selznick had to coax her back onto the set. As they finished the scene, Bob's scenes were done, and any hope of reconciling with his wife was gone. Shortly after Since You Went Away wrapped production, Bob was summoned into Louis B. Mayer's office. The head of MGM asked him not to cause a stir by revealing his wife's affair with Selznick or by filing for divorce, especially before the Song of Bernadette was released or before the Oscars took place. Bob told him he would not seek a divorce unless Jennifer wanted one and would not cause any issues. But he was also in disbelief by Mayer's indifference to the infidelity of his son-in-law and the betrayal of his daughter Irene. The hypocrisy was stunning indeed. That's Hollywood for you. In December of 1943, The Song of Bernadette was released to glowing reviews for Jennifer, and she was nominated for an Academy Award. Bob knew that once the Oscar ceremony was over, he would lose Jennifer for good. Thank you very much for watching. This is part 1 of a 2-part series on Jennifer Jones, Bob Walker, and David O. Selznick. Part 2 will be posted shortly. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and have a wonderful day.